Hey there guys, TC Made with TC Gaming. Just wanted to bring you another video. This is kind of an update or a part two maybe to some stuff I was working on before with a basic vault and climb system that was from FAF Action. I had put that up, I don't know, maybe sometime earlier in the week or at the end of last week. And hopefully some of you guys got a chance to check that out because it's pretty cool. But what we wanted to do is extend it a little bit and make it replicated. There was a version that had his code in here, and he also has a video for turning that into a replicated version. So I went through that process, and while I was looking to extend it into some IK functionality, I ran across another individual whose name is UnrealCG. That's his channel here, and he had a kit for advanced foot IK for Unreal Engine 4, 100% free. So I downloaded his package and incorporated the two together. So that's what we're going to go over tonight. But I want to show you a couple of other things involved with that whole process, which has a little bit to do with how to troubleshoot these things. So it's going to get into a little bit of blueprint as far as like error trapping and tracing values and variables and things like that to see what's going on behind the scenes. Sometimes when you're working on these things, it's difficult to kind of get your head around it, especially if you didn't write a lot of this stuff. And what I'm doing is I'm combining things that I'm finding that will make packages similar to other things that you get on the marketplace, but maybe with a little bit less overhead. And as a result, I have to go through a lot of troubleshooting and tracing and trying to figure out what's happening in there. So that's kind of what this is going to touch on, both those things. So let me just show you first what it is that we're actually doing. So this is going to be the what I'm calling the IKVC system, which is inverse kinematics and vault and climb all together. So IKVC. And with the IKVC system, if you come up to a wall that's short, you'll be able to jump over that, or vault over it rather. If you come up to something that's a little bit longer, you're gonna be able to climb up on top of that thing. Now I have the wrong animation on here right now, so that's why it went through that. So we'll fix that in a second. And then same thing, I got the wrong animation playing on here. So this gets me into the troubleshooting portion. If I found out that that was happening, and I want to find out what's driving that behavior, what you can actually do is in your package here, you're going to have a third person blueprint. And I set these up with three different players. There's an IKVC local player, and then there's a server player, which is the parent, and an IKVC server player child, which is just an inherited character that basically takes whatever is already on this parent and passes it on to the child, so that you could simply duplicate this and then change out your mesh and your animation blueprint on there and get a lot of these things working. But it's not quite set up right yet. You have to go in and make some changes to it. But I'll show you. So if I were in here in my, actually want to play in the server player character. And in here, you have a lot of different functions and event graphs and stuff. So if we just go right to the very beginning with the event graph, you can see in here, all of this code here is all about the IK system. Okay. And then all the code that's down here is about the vault and climb system from those two individuals that we talked about earlier. Now, basically what happens is, as we talked about in the last video, the wall trace, the wall height, and everything gets evaluated to determine if we should be trying to vault or climb over it. Like what are we going to do? So the code that I was just running there for the vault was working okay, which is down in here. Plays the vault animation. But up the top of this, we have the animation that's playing. This should have actually, instead of being get up, I should have put the climb montage on here. Now, I wanted really to have three different ones, and I don't currently have it set up for three different ones. So I'll put on here for climb. I'll put getting up on this one. And I don't know if it's that I haven't hit the conditions yet or, what's going on, but we'll get it figured out. But if I go over here, I can vault. If I go over here, I should have the climb up animation now, which looks a lot better than going through the center of the wall. And same thing here. So far so good. Now, if you notice too that with the IK, if we stand off to the side here, you should be able to see that his feet are separated. He's got good IK there. If he's on a pitched surface, if you come up from the edge and you hit the space bar, he's going to try and climb that. But if I stand on an angled surface like that, you can see that his legs bend appropriately and his feet are looking good there. Same thing we just did earlier with the steps. If he's on two different steps, his feet are going to be displaced and even extreme angles. Now, some of these will look a little weird depending on the angle that you get to, because you can see his ankles there are pretty good, but you know, on some angles you would probably snap your ankles off if you really tried to stand a certain way that's on here. So, and you can tweak some of this, you know, to your own liking. And then if you go over here to this moving platform, you can see how he responds as the platform changes location. You know, he's going to just kind of rock with that. So he stays set up correctly and just dips. Now, what the replication piece of this does for you is it makes it so that you could play this on a server game. So the way that you can see that is if I escape from here, it's going to stop the game. And I'm going to go next to the play toggle, and down here under number of players, if you just set this to 2 and then go back and hit play, what it'll do is it'll load up 2 windows for you. And to get control of your mouse, what's happening is on the one on the right, you're just seeing through the character. So if you hit Shift F1, you're going to get your mouse back. And then you can come over here to like the edge of your screen, and you can start to resize these by grabbing the windows and moving them so you get a little bit better position there. And if I left click in the one window, I'm now back in my character. And if again I hit Shift F1, I can get my mouse back and I can go over and toggle over to the second character and change his viewport and position. He can see the other character. So you know that you're in a 2-player environment here, right? And so what I want to do is just have him look at where that wall is. So I'm going to hit Shift F1 again to get my mouse back and go over here and now take control of my primary character. And if he goes over and plays his vaulting animation, you'll see 2 things. One is that this character that's watching from the second viewport, he can see that vault take place, but there's a lot of jitter there. See that crazy jitter? If he's jumping, no issue at all. I mean, the jump settings are turned up pretty high on this. But, you know, you can see him jump with no jitter. But it's when we do this vaulting animation, we see a lot of that. Now, what some people have said is there's a way to fix that by reducing the capsule size as he's in the middle of his animation for this. And I put the code in here that was given to me to help solve that. I haven't quite incorporated it yet, so that's something you might have to do on your own. But again, you know, we can see that everything is being replicated. It just needs cleaned up a little bit. So now again, back to the troubleshooting portion of this. If I wanted to troubleshoot this, what I would do is you go into the primary character and you have a couple different graphs in there. There's a primary event graph, which is where all this main code fires. And then there's a server graph, which basically, for anything that's being replicated onto the server, it comes through this loop here to pass that out. Now I have 2 different things that I was putting in to try and adjust the problem with the frame rate animations on the server. One is called a speed adjuster. This isn't in anybody's original code. And then the second one is over here, which was going to be this toggle collision size that was going to get fired whenever the capsule collision was triggered. And I'll probably go with this route, but I think that this code's going to get called from inside of the event graph all the way down here when we're getting ready to go in here and set the capsule collision. And I think I'll do it and change it right here. But what I want to show you in this troubleshooting thing, if you haven't used this before, I'm in the event graph, and let's say I wanted to find out what happens when my character starts this process. Well, one of the things you can do is you can come in here and you can say if the space bar is hit. You right click on this and you get in here and say add breakpoint. Okay, now by adding a breakpoint, what's going to happen is whenever I hit the space bar, the game's going to pause for a second. And I'm going to be able to come in here to this graph and step through this graph and watch what's going on. Now, in some cases, this will automatically go to the proper debug. Sometimes you'll have to pick from multiple objects in here. And usually you'd hit the play button first and then go to that. But we'll show you here. So right now I'm going to hit Shift F1. I'm going to reset my window positions on here just so I have a little bit more control over where things are at. I'm going to slide this to the left a little. If I go back in here and I can just run around, everything's good. As soon as I hit the space bar, see how my code grays out? I'm going to hit Shift F1 and go down here and click in the background, and it takes me into my graph. And now I have new buttons that have presented themselves. I have step into, step over, and step out. And step into, if you hover over that, you'll see that you can also do that by hitting the F11 key on your keyboard. So what I like to do is I like to come in here and I like to find that, and then once I'm on my graph, I'm going to hit F11 and it'll jump me to the next block of code. So from hitting the space bar it starts the process right here of line tracing for objects. And basically what we're doing is we're looking to see if we're near anything that we can either climb up on or vault over top of. So when I hit F11 again, it goes to a branch, and it's going to go over here and start to process the code. Now, it didn't, when it did the line trace, it didn't hit anything that was a wall. So because this arrow detection didn't get anything that was a wall, it just stepped out into the branch code, and it evaluated on the false side, which is nothing. So it just executes and terminates right there because I'm not near the wall. If I go back into the game code, I go back over here into my window, I should be able to still run around. And now if I'm standing in front of the wall and I hit the space bar again, see my code stops. I'm going to hit Shift F1 to get my mouse back. I'm going to go back in here and look at my branch execution. Now I'm going to do my line trace. Now this time it goes to the true pin and actually goes to find out where the wall is located and finds out if it's a normal wall or not, and checks the line trace for objects again for the wall height. Goes to another branch. It evaluated that it was true. It had a wall that was tall enough that we could either climb up or vault over. And now, depending on what the results of that were, it's going to take a branch. And up here, it's a wall height check. Should I climb it? Yes or no? It determined that I should not climb it. So it went down to the branch that said should climb as unchecked. Returns back into my sequence and then goes and gets the back wall height. And again, it's going to go and branch up here and check that out. And it's going to determine that that wall is not a thick wall. It's a thin wall. So that's going to return that code back. And from this branch, it determines if it goes up or down. So because it was a thin, short wall, it has made the determination in my branch code. And I'm just hitting F11 to go through this. It's hitting the branch code saying it should set the collision and actor rotation and go over here to the server side and start passing all the different authority back and forth to the server. And I'm just F11ing to step through these just so you can see. And it's just going to run through this code, and I can watch exactly where this thing's going to go. It's going to set all my modes, set the actor rotation, come down in here, pass that to the server, and eventually, when it comes back in this branch code, it's going to go ahead and play the montage as soon as it gets done with this last one here. It's going to go and play the montage for the vault, and then it's going to pass that on to the server. And that's probably where I'm going to put that code to interrupt it. Now, when the delay stops, a lot of times when you hit a delay, you're not going to get any more execution out of the code. So you would go back up here, you go back and get into your game again. You can see I vaulted over that. And you can also set these windows up so that, you know, they're kind of stacked around an area where you can see them a little bit better. So if I was standing here again and I hit the space bar and it invokes this process, I hit Shift F1 to get my mouse back. Well, I can move this around a little bit, and I can actually take this window and kind of shrink it down. And I could put these near each other so that as I'm watching this, I can step through this code over here. Kind of get some things out of the way here. So if I hit F11 over here, so I could go watch through my code on this window, and over here I should eventually see that goes to the animation, and I'll be able to see my guy on that side of the screen over there actually start to perform his montage, which is about to happen right in here. And again, I'm just trying to show you this because what you're going to do when you get this code, you're going to want to go through here and you're going to want to change montages and animations and you know, check these different settings and configurations. So there he is. He played his thing. That completed, and I'm out of the loop now. And at that point, I would go on to the next thing. Now, what we want to do here is we would go on, and again, if I hit that code, it's going to do it. So I'll just hit escape there. But that's the basic meat and potatoes of how to be able to go through and change and set up these different watch routines. And you can see it's very easy to step through that with that F11 code. Now, if you made changes and you don't want to keep stepping through it, you just wanted to see what the net result of your change was. Like, for example, if I had taken this code from the server graph and plugged that in to toggle the collision capsule, and I said I was going to base it on, you know, this kind of branch over here where we've decided that we're going to vault something. So if it comes down here and it's trying to go to the vault pin, this route, I could toggle somewhere in here the changing of that capsule size to get that to work. So if I made that change and I don't want those stops to execute anymore, what you can do is go up here to the debug window, and you can just say disable all breakpoints. And now when I go back and hit play in the code, I could go and run over here and hit my thing again. And it's just going to let me do my normal execution of the routines. And I could go through there and do some troubleshooting, whatever. And, you know, if you want to take control, so this guy's out of the viewport now, so I can run him up to this wall. I can hit Shift F1, come over here and get this other guy, have control of him. Now I can run him over here, and he can come over and watch. He can come over here and watch this other guy on his screen, so he can see now over there. If I hit Shift F1 again, come back over this way. Now when I hit my space bar, as I'm pushing against this, that guy can watch me climb up. And again, see, we get all that jitter. So that whole thing with executing that routine on the server side, I think the capsule change in height and size is going to fix that. But I just haven't had a chance to wire that up yet. Now what I've done is I've taken this entire project that has it has all the vault and code, or vault and climb code in it. It has all of the IK stuff already wired up. And I've taken that entire project and I've placed that on my drive for you. So if you go out to the link that's in this video, it should take you either to the demos and samples folder or into the replicated IKVC 424 folder. And in there you're going to get that iksystem.rar file, which again is based on the FAF Action video and also on the advanced foot IK for Unreal Engine videos, and those two things combined together. So hopefully this helps you guys out, and as I continue to work on this, improve this and improve this and turn it into a more robust system, this may find its way into you know, a plugin or something like that. And you know, want to get some, even though those guys are giving this stuff away for free, I want to make sure you understand where the code came from. Try and go out there and follow those guys, like them, show support, because they're putting out stuff that's really good and can help a lot of us. And I don't want to take credit for something that's not my work. I want to make sure that that's passed on to those guys. So even if I end up doing something with this, there should be some form of like an attribution in there to say this is attributed to these guys, and they should get something out of that. But it's out there for you guys to take a look at. And again, it's, you know, it's running in 424, and just a couple of those simple settings. When you go to play, if you want to turn it from a non-server to a server, you just put it in here. The primary code again is going to be inside of the blueprints for the IKVC, which is again inverse kinematics vault and climb code. It's going to be in the blueprint section, IKVC server player. And if you want to understand why your characters are like pink or green or red in here, I just did it so I could make sure I'm looking at the right player. But that's basically, if you go into the initialization script in here, which should be, where am I at? There's an initialization in here somewhere, or construction script, I'm sorry. I always think of it as initialization, but in the construction script, all we're doing in here is we're just going over, and after we set the capsule heights and everything, I just go over here and change the dynamic material instance, just change the body color of the character. If you want this guy to be white again, you can just either interrupt the pin right here, or you can just go here and change his color. But the reason I did that is because if you decided that you wanted to play test different settings, what you could do is take this IKVC server player child, and you can just come over here and duplicate him into a new instance, and then go into this code and go into the construction script and just say, okay, I'm going to make this a color that I know is something different, so I'll make him blue, let's say. Compile and save that, and now that character is in the world here as a blue character, and all you do to play him is you go into the world settings, and over here where I have my default pawn class, his name is child 1, so I would just go over to my default pawn class and pick IKVC server player child 1. Now when I hit play, I'm going to have my blue character that I could go and modify settings in the script and everything inside of his blueprint that only pertain to his particular instance of this character setup. And then from there, once I go through a series of playtests and get everything set up, then I can promote those up to other characters in the master and the parent or whatever, so that they end up being passed down to all the children. So it's just a really simple way to kind of troubleshoot stuff and go through and mark out your characters. So that's why I set them up as parents and children. And I don't want to drag this out for a long time, so I'm not really doing anything here except for showing you some basic fundamental troubleshooting and where the system's going. So again, if you get a chance to work with it, go check it out, download it. It should work for you just fine. It might be the basis for you for some simple things. As I mentioned the other day in some of my other videos, the system for ALS version 4, which is free on the marketplace, has some absolutely amazing physics in it. It's got wonderful IK and animations and everything. It's really next level stuff. Some of us don't need that for basic games. If you're doing an open world parkour game, maybe you spend the time to try and figure out a little bit more about what's going on with ALS version 4. But for something where you're just running around in your action game and you need to be able to climb up on something a little bit more realistically or have a little bit better foot placement, these simple lightweight systems might be something that serves you well. And as you can see in here, I mean, there's quite a few scripts and variables and things like that, with all these different systems that are in here. But it's really not a lot of stuff if you go and compare this to something like what's going on in ALS version 4, you know. And the other thing with this system too is when you go to these, if you want to find out what's happening with the animation blueprint, you can find by going into your character here, and usually you would have their viewport rather, and you can go in here and select the mesh, and that's going to show you what his third person ANMBP is. So if you just hit this little magnifying glass, it'll take you out there to find that. And you can see I have the montages in here from the other one. If you open up this third person animation blueprint, this shows you the two different systems, how they're hooked together to show the final animations. Now the cool thing is in this foot IK system, there are some variables already turned on in here. And all I really did with setting these up is I took the foot IK process that was in here, and down here where they blend the default pose and IK pose together, I interrupted between the blend to the output pose and put in a default slot player, which helps manage the montages from the vault and climb system, so that vault and climb becomes part of the IK, which really, you're not doing both at the same time. You're typically not going to have hand and foot placement going on while you're doing the vaulting or climbing, even though technically the hand placement could become an IK thing that makes that a little bit better. And maybe we get there. Maybe we keep evolving this until it becomes something that's a little bit more useful. Now, the other thing I want to point out too is if you go into the video descriptions for these the videos that are on my thing anyway. I don't know if I can see my video that's in progress, and I'll just go to the one that I had on here the day before. But if you go to the videos and you go down here into the system that I was working on for the system for the basic vault and climb. Let me pause that for a second. If you go down in here into the description, I have all the links and everything to all the different original sources and all that in here, so you could always find your way back to where this came from. I added one tonight, which is the one for the foot and IK. There's a new link in there for this one. And if you have any problems with the Google Drive links to get into my tools or anything like that, just let me know. I'll gladly reach out and try and fix that for you. Again, my name's TC Made with TC Gaming. Hopefully you guys got some value out of this, and maybe you're able to use it for your own projects. And again, go and check out UnrealCG and go and check out FAF Action, and keep an eye on what these guys are doing. That UnrealCG, I'm going to be in his channel quite a bit, I can tell, because if you look at his videos in here, this guy has a ton of really, really useful videos, like multicolored outline tutorial for objects and things like that, which would be great in a fantasy RPG game where you're trying to highlight enemies or something with a fairy fire effect spell or something. You could get to wherever you want to. Here's visibility effects and holograms and everything else. So again, if you guys are doing these videos, or you're watching these different things, don't forget to credit the people who are actually putting the stuff out there that you can learn from or take advantage of to use in your own way. Like again, UnrealCG and FAF Action, these guys put some pretty amazing stuff out that hopefully becomes something that's more useful for you. Okay, so again, hopefully this helped you. You guys have a great morning. It's about 4:10 a.m. over here on the East Coast of the United States. Still dealing with the pandemic issue over here and trying to get out of quarantine pretty soon. But hopefully you guys are taking this opportunity to learn something new. I want to show you another thing too that I ran across the other night, which I thought was pretty interesting from a game dev perspective. And I do have this on my channel. If you go back to Go back to my channel on here, I have a playlist in where I just put in creative ideas. And if you go to the view full playlist on here, this guy, Kirby Ferguson, did a couple of really interesting talks, and he talks about the 4 steps to getting an idea, and he's calling this the remix method. And what he talks about in here is the basic elements of creativity are to copy, transform, and combine. And that's how a lot of things become new things. So, like in the case of this here, we're taking the FAF system for the vault and climb, which was pretty basic, and combining that with, excuse me, with the IK system. And when you're done, you have something that's a lightweight, hopefully a lightweight utility that you can put into your games. So again, we're just copying, transforming, combining other things to come up with new iterations and new uses for these. So go check that out as well. It might help you be inspired for your next AAA platform hit. Again, my name's TC Made with TC Gaming. Thank you guys so much for watching. And if you like what you see, like, follow, and subscribe. Feel free to give me some feedback, and we'll get together on the next one. I'll see you at the next live stream, guys. Thanks again. Take care. Have a good night.